wide open, till your faith leads you back to solid ground. That's it. Here's the beginning. Gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith leads you back to solid ground. Now you got it. Back to the beginning. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith leads you back to solid ground. Excellent. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith leads you back to solid ground. One more time. You got it now. You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith leads you back to solid ground. Good. All right, I don't want to throw too many new things at you at once, so I think you know this one. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need time. Make them apart. What we need is here. Wow. What we need is here. That was so good. Do it one more time. What we need is here. What we need is here. Well done, you. Beautiful.
Welcome and good morning. I'm Laurel Sepla-Etra, and I'm delighted to be your worship leader this morning. One thing I love about this congregation are our lay-led services, and you'll be able to experience one today. I want to extend a very warm welcome to everyone who's visiting us for the first time. We are an intentional community gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual spiritual journeys. If you're joining us online, fill out a visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. And now, Reverend David has some announcements to share with us.
Reverend David sat too far back in the room. Though it is awfully nice to get the chance to be on the other side of the mic and hear the service and song leading sing together. 3 announcements in reverse chronological order. First, save the date November 2nd. Saturday, November 2nd is our annual auction. After the service today, buy your ticket. There's still time to donate things for the silent auction. It is not too late to donate stuff. In fact, we could use it. And already, I think that bidding has begun. So more about all of this at the auction table after the service. That's Saturday, November 2nd. Before then, this coming Saturday, October 19th, is the first half of our Climate Justice Revival Weekend. So Saturday the 19th, from 1 to 3:30 for kids and adults, and in fact from 1 to 6 for adults, we have an opportunity to collectively reimagine our future in conversation, in advocacy, and for all ages, to involve kids too, in asking, what does this look like? What's possible? That's followed up on Sunday, next Sunday, with a worship service on climate justice and great music and lots of participants from our climate action team. Before that, this afternoon, though, right after the service, is our Opportunities Fair. So there are, I think, 16 or 18 different teams and groups and committees of the congregation. After the service, grab a bite to eat, get some coffee, and check out the opportunities that are there to find your small community within the big community. Thanks, Laura.
What date was the last one you said?
That's today.
Oh, okay.
That's in like an hour.
Okay, nice.
The chalice is the symbol of our liberal faith. It is the warmth of compassion, the fire of justice, a lamp on the spiritual path. If you're joining us online and have a chalice nearby, please get ready to light it with us. I'd like to invite Jess Rempel to light this morning's chalice.
Good morning. My name is Jess Rempel, and I'm honored to be our chalice lighter this morning. Us chalice lighters are tasked with sort of reviewing our lives and what brought us here to UUCB. Why is our spiritual home here? So here's my attempt. I was born into the family of a Mennonite pastor and a nurse where I attended church regularly, and I felt safe in that community. The Mennonites looked after one another and emphasized acts of caring as the best way to witness their faith to others. I never felt pressured to subscribe to a particular creed, and I was never baptized. I went to undergrad at Bethel College, a tiny Mennonite liberal arts school in the middle of Kansas, where I studied art and religion. I selected those topic areas because I wanted to know how the believers around me felt and moved through life. Even as I felt my own faith, I couldn't share my faith with them. I didn't believe in God, but I wanted to understand what they felt. In my coursework there, I studied the Christian Bible, and I was particularly taken with the Old Testament, and in particular within the Old Testament with the Hebrew prophets. They would witness for social justice without any notion of a cosmic reward. They risked life and limb to tell the powerful to repent their unjust ways with spicy invective. One particular passage that's always stuck with me is the prophet Amos taking the perspective of God as speaker, saying, "O you who turn justice into wormwood, I despise your feasts, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them, and the peace offerings of your fattened animals, I will not look upon them. Take away from me the noise of your songs, I will not listen to the melody of your harps, but let justice roll down like water and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream." At the time, and now, I thought, get him, Amos. I found his moral, if not his theological position, to be very compelling. Coming up in the era of, that was plus or minus 5 years from the collapse of Enron, from us initiating our war in Iraq and Afghanistan, the second one for those of you that are counting, and also that was the era of Colorado banning same-sex marriage. So it was a dark time, and I appreciated the moral clarity. After college, I led a zigzagging life course through a stint teaching in Japan, one ultimately failed marriage, a master's degree in occupational therapy from Colorado State University, 2 cross-country moves, and the blessing of a new marriage full of love and life. Through all of it, I was hanging on to a poorly defined but strongly held conviction that maybe the greatest, most sacred thing there is in fellowship with each other and trying to make the world a better place. I attended multiple churches throughout all of that, including a UU congregation in Maine. But at the time, my life was just too uprooted to participate fully in that congregation, and I didn't really become familiar with the tradition, even though I felt very at home there and very welcomed. Recently, searching for an authentic spiritual community, my wife, Laura, and I began attending this church about a year ago, and several months ago, we became full members. I am here in this congregation now because I believe that being a Unitarian is not a diagnosis of exclusion. I am not here only because I am a refugee from the excesses and abuses of other religious traditions, although many of us are that as well. But rather, I'm here because I think the Unitarian Church's great insight is that, sorry, I lost my spot in my place here. The Unitarian Church's great insight is that the most important part of spiritual life is in how we are in relationship with each other right now as we are living our lives, and that this is a wonderful distillation of the best part of many faith traditions. Maybe Amos would have felt at home here too. In this spirit of inclusion and fellowship, I light our chalice today.
To covenant is to commit, that even if we fall short of our aspirations, we will not let go of them. We will never cease from trying again to live them out. In that spirit, gathered in person and online, will you all together speak our covenant aloud? We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, to reach out and touch one another, to care with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it. Here are some thoughts from Reverend Victoria Safford on what we're doing here at this very moment. She said, "Worship, unlike almost every other thing we take time to do on purpose, worship makes nothing, accomplishes nothing, sells nothing, yields nothing. It is its own end. In our liberal communion, it has no direct object grammatically. The verb is intransitive. We don't worship anything, any single thing, but draw instead upon the oldest meaning of the word from Old English when it meant worth-ship, to consider that which is of worth, to hold that which is worthy. Of the 168 hours in a week, we set one aside precisely for this work that is not exactly work. This activity that isn't very active, and yet nor is it passive, and which yields no product except sometimes a kind of deepening, a shifting of perspective, an interior transformation, a revelation. These things are immeasurable, intangible. They are not felt by everyone at once. Worship for us is communal, and yet essentially private. Who knows how far you may travel between now and the closing words?
As Unitarian Universalists who do not share a common text or a set of readings that every congregation shares on any given Sunday, what we sing is who we are. Our shared hymns in our gray hymnal and teal hymnal are that theological thread that unites us from congregation to congregation. So, will you please rise in body or in spirit? Our opening hymn this morning is number 346 in the gray hymnal. If you like reading music, the hymnals are on the pews. If you don't like reading music, the lyrics are on the screen. Singing is a way to, when I grew up in Catholic school, they told us, well, when you sing, you pray twice. So some people hold that belief. Some people think that singing communally is a way to sort of drop beneath the words and connect to each other on a deeper level. There's also scientific research that shows that when we sing together, our heartbeats synchronize with those around us, uniting us in a way that may be unreachable otherwise. So here's number 346. With me. it's me again. I was really honored when Kate, who put together the frame of today's service, asked if I would consider leading the meditation. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you're willing to close your eyes, if it feels safe in your body to do that, and if that feels too far to go this morning, you can consider looking ahead either at the top of the pew in front of you or at the carpet, or softening your gaze. Just limiting the amount of information that is coming at you in this moment. Just taking the time to make that choice for yourself is such a powerful act. And a way to reorient to your internal compass, to that bigger, unknowable something that seems to call to you without letting go. In this moment, see if you can perceive your body making contact with the seat that's holding you up, the pew, the chair, whatever piece of furniture is supporting you. Can you notice the places where your body makes contact with that support? Your pelvis, your back, your legs. Can you feel what's happening inside your own body, and also bring part of your awareness to the room that's holding us? Can you hear the quiet movement of breath among bodies? Can you hear the faraway babble of a tiny person? Can you hear the clock ticking? Can you feel our gathered energy? In a moment, I'll invite you to try something brave. We're going to start to hum together, just to make some sound and to experience what it's like to do that in this gathered space. There's no right or wrong way. You can hum a single note. You can hum a song that we've already sung today, or anything that's on your heart. I'll start with you and then invite you to breathe whenever you need to, and keep humming for this next part of our shared meditation. I'll keep talking and you keep humming. See if you can feel the vibrations created within your body. All sound is vibration. You might feel a buzz in your lips, your teeth, your tongue. You might even perceive it in the bony structures of your face. You might feel it in your throat or even in your chest. in addition to tracing the vibrations inside of you, can you hear the sounds of the hummers near you? Some people hum loudly, some people hum softly. There may be some folks who don't feel comfortable humming, and see if you can perceive them too. What if you tried to hum a little bit softer? And what if you tried to hum a little bit louder without losing your connection to the sounds around you? And when it feels right, you can let that sound die away. And as our created sound falls away, check in inside your body. A lot of us know that creating sound just feels really good, and of course, scientists are now catching up, and we know that creating vibrations that way is also a way to stimulate the vagus nerve, which helps us to move into that settled state our nervous systems can create, and actually makes it easier for us to connect with one another. We feel a little more safe, a little more balanced, a little more regulated. A little bit beyond our often limited thinking, a little more expanded.
Ritual is the outward expression of an inward movement that sometimes unfolds over years. In moving our bodies and placing stones to symbolize our joys and sorrows, we are gardeners of our souls, tending and training and teaching ourselves to recognize the hope and suffering woven daily into our living. Becoming a people who recognize the beauty and the tragedy which suffuse this world. For those meeting in person, I invite you to come forward as you feel so moved, starting with the back half of the room, folks in front of the windows, and then the folks in front. Silently take a stone, feel its weight, feel your body slowly warm it. Let the stone be an emblem of your thankfulness and your worry, both. And then place it in the sacred earth, in the company of all the joys and sorrows of this gathered community. We have two concerns today from Kim Kaputska for her concern for her little sister, Charlotte, who just underwent a stem cell transplant as treatment for multiple myeloma. A concern from Neil McBurnett. Condolences to the family of my next-door neighbor, Howard Pellerine, who was killed by a hit-and-run driver last week. He was a kind man. For all our hopes and griefs, We hold this compassionate space with love.
Occasionally in our services, we use music to join our collective energy, and sometimes it serves as a point of reflection, to go beyond words and experience something. As a musician, I often think that when composers create something, there's this process of surrendering to something greater, to put something on a page. And so then when performers bring that music to life, there's something of that reanimation of the spirit that comes through. So not only are these performers creating something spiritually significant to share with you, but they're also relaying those original ideas of a composer's moment of inspiration. So thank you so much to Austin and Kathleen.
Okay. Can you be flat? Okay. Good morning. Can you guys hear me? How about now? All right. My name is Kim Kaputska. I apologize. I didn't realize talking about my sister and the concern was going to upset me. So let me. So the. I don't know how many of you guys know the theme this morning is worship. And I'm actually a bit uncomfortable with that word, but not as uncomfortable as I was when I walked in the door because of Laurel's definition of worship. Because I come from a family of Missouri Synod Lutherans. And I come from a family of Missouri Synod Lutherans, very conservative, a very vengeful spirituality. I don't even know if those two words go together. So I actually think of our coming together here as a communion, as a connection, as a community. And of all the aspects of that communion, one that resonates strongly with me are the readings that David does, the sharing of words of wisdom, beauty, and often pain that touch my heart and move my soul. Those words are often centered in the term active hope. It may not be used, but that's how I see it. If you're familiar with Joanna Macy, she's an activist Buddhist author and deep ecologist. She's the one who who coined that term. And that concept of active hope nourishes me. And today, I'd like to share 3 poems that to me tell a narrative of active hope, and I didn't write any of them. But before I do that, when I was driving over here, I thought a little bit more about poetry. And I think it touches something that Amy mentioned about music. It allows us to put aside our logic brain, and those words allow us to access another part of ourselves. So with that, and well, that's okay. I won't do these poems justice at all in my reading. They're very passionate. A Litany for Survival by Audre Lorde. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going, in the hours between dawns looking inward and outward, at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures, like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the deaths of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear, like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, this illusion of some safety to be found, the heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it's better to speak remembering we were never meant to survive. That's 1. 2. Active Hope by Joanna Macy. Active hope is not wishful thinking. Active hope is not waiting to be rescued by the Lone Ranger or some savior. Active hope is waking up to the beauty of life, on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. The web of life is calling us forth at this time. We've come a long way and are here to play our part. With active hope, we realize that there are adventures in store, strength to discover, and comrades to link arms with. Active hope is a readiness to engage. Active hope is a readiness to discover the strengths in ourselves and in others, a readiness to discover the reasons for hope and the occasions for love, a readiness to discover the size and strengths of our hearts, our quickness of mind, our steadiness of purpose, our own authority, our love of life, the liveliness of our curiosity, the unsuspected deep well of patience and diligence, the keenness of our senses and our capacity to lead. None of these can be discovered in an armchair or without risk. And lastly, I'm going to start crying again. This is also for the people of North Carolina. Sorry. Appalachian Elegy, sections 1 through 6 by Bell Hooks. All right, this one's supposed to be very passionate, so hear them cry. The long dead, the long gone, speak to us from beyond the grave. Guide us that we may learn all the ways to hold tender this land. Hard clay, direct, rock upon rock, charred earth in time. Strong green growth will rise here. Trees back to life, native flowers pushing the fragrance of hope, the promise of resurrection. 2. Such then is beauty surrendered against all hope. You are here again, turning slowly. Nature as chameleon, all life, change and changing again, awakening hearts, steady moving from unnamed loss into fierce, deep grief that can bear all burdens, even the long passage into a shadowy dark where no light enters. 3. Night moves through the thick dark, a heavy silence outside near the front window. A black bear stamps down plants, pushing back brush, fleeing man-made confinement, roaming unfettered, confident. Any place can become home, strutting down a steep hill as though freedom is all in the now, no past, no present. 4. Earthworks, thick brown mud clinging, pulling a body down. Heard wounded earth cry, bequeathed to me the hope, ancestral rights to turn the ground over, to shovel and sift until history, rewritten, resurrected, returns to its rightful owners. A past to claim, yet another stone lifted to throw again against the enemy, making way for new endings, random seeds spreading over hillside, wild roses, come by fierce wind and hard rain, unleashed furies here in this touched wood, a dirge of lamentation for earth to live again, earth that is all at once a grave, a resting place, a bed of new beginnings, avalanche of splendor. There's 6, this is 5. Small horses ride me, carry my dreams of prairies and frontiers where once the first people roamed, claimed union with the earth, no right to own or possess, no sense of territory, all boundaries placed by unseen ones. Here I will give you thunder, shatter your hearts with rain, let snow soothe you, make your healing water clear, sweet, a sacred spring where the thirsty may drink, animals all. 6. Listen, little sister, angels make their hope here. In these hills, follow me, I will guide you. Careful now, no trespass. I will guide you word for word, mouth for mouth, all the holy ones embracing us, all our kin making home here. Renegade, marooned, lawless fugitives grace these mountains. We have earth to bind us, the covenant between us can never be broken. Vows to live and let live. And that is.
One of the great joys of being a non-creedal people is that we're each free to pursue meaning as it calls to us. And so I love this next song because it reminds us just how much there is for us to learn from one another. So will you please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing number 1008 if you're following along in your teal hymnal.
Hello. Wow. I mean, the music, the poetry, the reflections, I mean, it's just been a pretty amazing service, and I'm so grateful to get to be a part of it. Has anyone here ever been told, I don't get you? Some people? Yeah, I thought so. This room, I figured. When my wife, Natalie, and I first came to a UU service, we got to participate in a Stones ritual. We usually go to the 9 o'clock. We have 2 children, Bridger, who's almost 4, and Tegan, who's 1.5 almost. So it's a little bit more kid-friendly. It's also more intimate, just a smaller crowd. And a part of that Stones ritual is people verbalizing their joys and sorrows and everyone responding, "We are with you." And as someone who had been on several occasions told, "I don't get you," what I came to realize when Natalie and I met was that we shared an interest in a really deep and really vulnerable connection. That was one of the first things that attracted us to each other. And when I got to experience that first Stones ritual, I saw the potential, at least, for this community to be one of people who sought what we sought, that deeper connection. And that first service, Natalie had to kind of elbow me in the ribs to get up and share something, because I found that my interest in deeply connecting vulnerably with a bunch of people I didn't know came into conflict with my kind of egocentric concern about how what I had to share would be perceived. And I did it, thanks to her nudge, and I've often found myself doing it, not really knowing what would come out, but trusting that what did come out was true to me. And a few weeks ago, in the midst of a really rich session of sharing and receiving, what came out was, I'm sure David's service and sermon will actually be great, but we could probably do this the whole time and that'd be wonderful too. And after I shared that, Kate asked if I would publicly unpack that, which necessitated that I kind of privately understand it first. So that's why I'm here. I wrote this heavily wordsmithed script to do that, and then this morning I woke up and it didn't feel very genuine or personal, which it had a lot of like alliteration and some rhymes, and it was really poetic, but it wasn't as personal as I wanted this to be. So instead I have a bunch of chicken scratch notes that I wrote this morning, which hopefully will keep me kind of directionally on topic. I covered a lot of that already. I'm going to do some more Q&A because that feels fun for me. Has anyone heard the phrase, "I'm not religious, but I am spiritual"? Yeah. So I first heard that as part of a stand-up bit in college. The comedian responded to a young woman telling the male comedian that by saying, "I'm not honest, but you're really interesting." And unfortunately for my very externally perceptive 20-something-year-old self, I internalized that resonance that I felt with that sentiment of non-religious spirituality was socially uninteresting, and it encouraged me to distance myself from that feeling of spiritual curiosity. Fortunately, that hyper concerned about other people's perceptions 20-year-old something has grown a bit, and for the last 10 years I've been kind of scratching a spiritual itch to better understand what it is that calls me and what spirituality means to me. And we've heard it a few times already today. I mean, I resonate deeply with the concept of spirituality being a sense of connection with something bigger than myself. And I think of worship then as the response to that call, the way that I honor what is worth valuing, this connection with something greater, with my time, with my attention, and ultimately with practices that remind me of that connection. the piece of that that's become really obvious as I think about those different worship practices, including the stones ritual, is the ability of those activities to quiet my mind, to open my heart, to combat the ways in which my idea of being a separate person, a separate self, is at odds and in conflict with feeling connected to other people and to something greater. So, back to the stones ritual. That process of vulnerably sharing and deeply listening to the joys and the sorrows of this community, it joins my inner experience, my universe of emotions and feelings with yours. And in so doing, it has the effect of breaking down and kind of disabusing me of this illusion of being anything unique or separate or at the center of anything. This practice is, as it was said earlier, to me a communion around shared joys and sorrows. It's a practice ultimately of open-heartedness. And as I was describing this feeling and trying to find the words for it, a friend raised the idea of porosity. And that really resonated for me, that what we're doing here is cultivating this emotional porosity. We are increasing how much of our hearts, and I understood this morning when I said it out loud that it was kind of graphic, but how much of our hearts leak out into the world and how much we allow the world to leak into our hearts too. I recognize too that I was taught to fear that emotional porosity. I was taught that if I authentically put myself out into the world, I could authentically be found unworthy of love. And that was adequate justification to shut myself off, right? I was taught also to fear what I might need to do in response to seeing this shared humanity, the richness of anyone else's lived experience. I'm thinking of the story of the woman who realized that when she dropped change in the bucket of a homeless person, she couldn't look at that person and see a person for fear that they would end up living on her couch, because we protect ourselves from feeling everything that we need to in response to seeing that actual humanity in other people by calling them other relative to ourselves, calling that not me versus me. When I find the ability through these worship practices to actually show up open-hearted, it's not out of courage or overcoming those fears. It's in response to what I've learned to be a much greater fear, which I could only really understand once I started to unlearn those taught fears. It's that I've come to see that if I show up vulnerably, open-hearted in the world to see and be seen, only then can I develop a connection with anyone or anything greater than myself that's deeper than my self-image. And living a life that is at that surface level prevents us from really being loved or loving in a really genuine way, and that's not living. I think it's this sense of reconnection with that sort of love that comes out of a really vulnerable and genuine connection that is actually the longing of my spiritual itch. It's that's that greater something that I really want to live in and live as and kind of live through me in a sense. And there's a reason for me that this is a worship practice and not a worship perfect or whatever the opposite of practice is. I keep forgetting that. I keep forgetting that connection. I have to help myself get unstuck in the mental stories of self-importance in order to come back to the open-heartedness that I know exists. I have to quiet my mind and open my heart in order to commune with that source of love. It reminds me, when I do that, what I often forget, that the the stories of separation, of me versus you, of us versus them, of self and other, that these are fairy tales, that these are stories that we comfort ourselves with and that we can and I think must outgrow. Once we stop believing these imaginary stories, we stop giving them the very real power to isolate me from you and me from the love that I want to live as. This came from the poetic version of this. This is an election of connection over protection. Some rhyming. It's choosing to expand my heart, living in love experienced as this vulnerable connection. It's deciding that what is worthy of value is living in and as that love, that a life without genuine love is no life at all. When I am able to open my heart to allow that love to exist within me, it brings love into the world through me, and it allows me to work toward living out my values in a way that is impossible when I'm self-consumed. When I can nurture that open-hearted porosity within these walls, it allows me to carry that out without these walls and to see that the world outside of these walls is me too. Just like that connection of me and you that I feel in here, I can carry that outward. At some level, this practice is a spiritual workout in that sense. It's strengthening the muscles to carry that with us every day. The other 167 hours of the week, I guess. The core of this is, for me, recognizing that I am not merely interdependent, I am inseparable. I'm not some isolated life, but I am a distinct part of this life-giving system of which we are all a part. I am not the penultimate, but one unique creation in a divine creative process leading towards God knows what. And yet, I recognize that fear of what I need to do in response to that feeling is well-founded. I can't carry on with a self-consumed life when I genuinely feel connected with something much greater. It's impossible for me to dismiss the suffering of someone that now feels like a part of me too. And the reason that I'm so encouraged to stand up here and to try to share this feeling more broadly is that I believe that boundless circle of compassion that can ripple outward from that place of love within me, that's a recipe for how we change the world. It breaks down that barrier between self and others such that I can't allow someone else's suffering to continue because I can no longer dismiss it as not mine. So with that, just to tie it back together a little bit, this worship that we are doing in communion around this shared vulnerability, this open-heartedness, is a means of reopening our hearts to all the love that we allow our minds to think us out of. The worship, then, is the service of our lives when it empowers our lives to be lived in and as the love that we foster within our open hearts in order to bring more love into the world through our actions. Thank you.
This month, our offering goes to Boulder Food Rescue. We will have a short video right now.
Hi everyone, this is Sean with Boulder Food Rescue. We are a local nonprofit here in Boulder that works to reduce food waste and increase food access by rescuing food that would be wasted from grocery stores and restaurants and taking it to communities who need more food access all throughout Boulder. We do this on bicycles through a decentralized model where we have a volunteer go to a grocery store, pick up all of this fresh produce that was going to be thrown away that's totally edible, and then they take it to communities who require more food access. The reason we have this set up as this kind of decentralized model that takes food straight to the people instead of a central location where people can gather is because this allows us to bypass a lot of barriers that exist in food access, barriers such as transportation, scheduling, shame and stigma that come from visiting locations like food pantries. So our model relies on neighbors delivering food to other neighbors. And another thing that's neat about how we set this up is how this food is exactly distributed is left up to the communities. We rely on the agency and experience of members within those communities to help us distribute the food. Those members are a specialized volunteer position that we call a grocery program coordinator. They're community leaders. They tell us where to drop off the food, when to do it, and they kind of orchestrate to make sure that that food gets distributed amongst all of their neighbors. So as an organization, we have over 150 volunteers. We reach over 7,000 people a week, and we rescue about 1,500 pounds of food every day, totaling to over 500,000 pounds of food each year. And there's lots of ways that you can get involved. You can send us donations. You can sign up to volunteer. You can follow us on our social medias. You can subscribe to our newsletter to learn more about the work that we do. And thank you.
For those online, you can use the QR code or find a link in the video description. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us, as we move through the world, the signals buzz and hum, sparkling through space one to another, connecting us invisibly but palpably. We are one, and from every window our light shines. Will you rise in body or in spirit as we close in song?
Grace.